What is going on, everybody? Hope you're all having a good day. Bobby Fi with my guide here, James McCool. For those of you, I'm sure almost all of you know, if not all of you, but James is the founder and the CEO of Paydirt, who we have a partnership with, and you can find a lot of their tools and etc. on our site. It's pretty awesome stuff, and a lot of it I'm still getting used to because you get stuck in the one way of playing and all this, but this has a lot of different things that I actually want to get more involved in. Unfortunately, I can't in California. A lot of the betting models, and I know we've had people already hit some huge parlays off of your stuff, which has been great. And yeah, we're really happy to be partnered with James, and he's awesome, and Paydirt is awesome, and we're going to talk through some of their tools and sort of how to use them. And if there's any questions or anything that come up, feel free to pop them on in. But this is sort of, this is a content that we're doing for today, but we're also going to, use it for a little bit of evergreen content and hopefully get you guys more familiar with the Paydirt tools that you can see on TrueDFS, etc. So James, how you doing today, my friend?
Man, I'm okay. I woke up with a migraine, which is never great. I'm going to blame the tequila that I had last night. And that would make sense, right? Like, you're like, oh no, woe is me, I have a hangover. But usually I drink wine, so I decided to switch it up last night and have some tequila, and I shouldn't have done that. So otherwise, I'm feeling okay.
Was it wine with tequila?
No.
Wine with tequila? Okay.
Hey, that is a fucking terrible idea.
That's a terrible idea. For some reason, even at 43 years old, I still find myself in that stage occasionally.
Yeah. You got to get away from that specific combo. I was out in Los Angeles with a friend who we every Wednesday night we watch anime together, and we usually will drink while we're watching. And when I was out there visiting them, I ended up having that combo of tequila with wine, and that was just that was the worst hangover I think I've had in 10 years. Terrible stuff. But I'm okay. I'm not too bad. I am recovering well. I feel pretty good overall about how the season has been going on a larger view. Paydirt tools have fueled already, I think, somewhere around like $250,000 in wins in just baseball, which is pretty sick.
Yeah.
We have had some OGs and some really loyal Paydirt subscribers end up having a lot of really good success. One of them being Mike Kinsley, who has punched 2 tickets to the Fantasy World Baseball Championship already. Oh, nice. Yeah, he's crushing it. And just it's nice to see that level of success, especially early on in the season, because as most people know, baseball, like, it's so I don't want to say that it's so fragile, but it is fragile to the seasons, right? Early on in the season, where it's colder and where offenses are typically, and we'll talk about that for a second in a couple minutes, but typically less potent. It's harder to find higher levels of success in MLB because it's less consistent. Typically, you're not 5 stacking earlier on in the year. There's higher variance. There's less offense. But this year, we think the balls are juiced again. So there's been a lot of offense, and it's been warmer, and we have these 2 little league parks. So we've had a lot more offense, and it's been a pretty good start to the season. I'm excited to see when summer gets here how things go. But overall, really happy with the way that models have improved. The changes that I've made kind of over the off season have been paying off. I made a couple little changes to the way the contest sims work and the way the models themselves run. So it's been good. It's been a good start to the season.
Nice, man. Yeah, no, I've noticed that. I've seen a lot of screenshots from a lot of subs, and it's pretty awesome. And did want to remind everybody real quick before we get into starting to talk about some of the tools that you can, again, you can find the tools with us, but also, we're in the middle of revamping our site, but the information is all there. At the same time, look, we have these trial packages, and obviously our offerings have completely changed over the last few months. So you can go, we made it, even if you've done the trial before, you're welcome to go ahead and do it again. And would encourage you guys to check it out because, between that and our partnership with SaberSim, mine and Cheats' content, which I don't know if you guys have followed, but Cheats and I have been completely on fire in NBA lately. And the NBA playoffs is my favorite DFS because we don't have to worry about 7,000 bizarre guys sitting and weird things happening and anything like that. And this is always the time of year where I do best for NBA. So check out all of our stuff. I think we got a really good offering. And we've got a great Discord and a lot of really smart people as well on the team. So check it out. And with that said, James, I thought you could maybe walk us through some of these tools we're talking about here. I'm going to share your screen over here. And thought we could run through whatever you want to, sort of to leave it up to you. Using this slate as an example, I guess this would be the best way to start off, I guess.
Yeah, so what we're seeing here is stuff over at Paydirt, but everything that we show off here is also available over at TrueDFS. It'll look a little bit different. It won't have some of these gold colors, but it is all the same models. It's all coming from the same data backend, and it's all the same stuff that we use. So we're going to show off a couple of the main tools here that I think are worth using every single day. We're going to take a look at the range of outcomes, the game betting model, and the pivot finder, as well as the contest sims. So the main thing that when you're using the Paydirt tools to remember is that the way that I built them was to initially, when these were built, this was meant as kind of an add-on to another mainline product. Okay. So the main idea behind the way that I build models out is to try to find ceilings and to find relative value. My idea of DFS is very much the way that you win GPPs is by finding the way to win GPPs. It's not necessarily by doing what everybody else is doing. So you really do have to look for ways to say, okay, if this works, how much of the field do I pass? Or if this doesn't work, does it kill me? Right? Like think really about the way that you win GPPs. And so all of the Paydirt tools are built kind of with that in mind, with the exception, obviously, of the betting models, which don't fucking care about whether you're playing against the field or not. With the exception of pick six, but that's a different story. Yeah. So when we're building these things out, sometimes you're going to find some quirky little things, right? Like a couple days ago, I think it was 2 days ago, Tim Tawa for Arizona projected as like the third highest overall median for hitters. And when you see that, after getting used to using roto grinders or, Stochastic or whatever, like mainline models, you're like, that can't be right. And fun fact, I actually took Tim Tawa's ceiling way down before that projection even happened because he was projecting so high. And lo and behold, he ends up hitting a home run and a double and being in winning lineups. And the whole thesis behind this, and the reason why this model is able to find those things, is because it doesn't use super long samples. I specialize in shorter samples. And two, I use a lot of regression math. So what you're going to find is these kind of interesting little, what I call to be quirks, but you could call them, upside plays or whatever. And you should be using those as a way of saying, if this works out, I pass the field, X, Y, Z, stuff like that. So at the very highest level, we have the scoring percentages, and this is always where you start for every single slate. And this is going to tell you the way that I have built out the models is to use a MLB game simulation. So I built a game sim from the bottoms up. None of my models for baseball are top down. They don't use any Vegas information. They don't use any prop information. This is all built from the bottom up. So this utilizes a game sim, which simulates out the games and then measures a couple different things. So when you first open up, you're going to see the simple view. But if you want all of the information, just switch to advanced, and then you're going to be able to see, as soon as it loads or procs, you're going to be able to see a lot more information than just what you're seeing in this original. So simple is just 8+ runs, win percentage, LevX, own percentage. Advanced gives you a lot of other information as well. And when we go over into the player range of outcomes, you're going to see like a whole bunch of information outside of simple, but we'll get there in a second. So what this can tell you is a couple different things. It'll tell you how often a team is leading in the first inning, how often they're leading in the 5th inning, how many runs they're projected to score, how many times they score 8 or more runs in the game simulations, what their win percentage is, how often they're the top scoring team overall based on their simulations, and then also what their projected ownership is supposed to be for the GPP. You'll also see LevX, which is a simple way and an old way, admittedly, of measuring how valuable a team is relative to their ownership. So the things like first inning and 5th inning, that's not necessarily all that valuable, but it is worthy for tiebreakers, right? So say that you have two teams and you are looking at them to stack them, and they both have kind of similar runs. They both have similar 8+ run percentages, but one of them has an average 5th inning of like 1.9, and the other one has an average 5th inning of 2.4. That can tell you that the team who has an average fifth inning of 2.4 runs is going up against a worse pitcher overall, but a better bullpen. And the other one is against a better pitcher and a worse bullpen. So that kind of stuff does matter when you're doing a kind of coin flip situation where you're like, all right, well, maybe it's less likely that they get to the starter. But once they get into the bullpen sucks. And they can light up the bullpen. So it's kind of nice to have that little tiebreaker.
Yeah.
But the most important things here are going to be the 8+ runs and the top score percentage. So from all of my research, when a team scores, when you're looking to stack a team, the more likely scenarios for them to win you GPP are when they score 8 or more runs. That's just the threshold that you have when it comes to baseball. Sure. For hockey, for instance, we also have 6+ goals, right? Like that's another situation where if a team is going to win you a GPP, it's because they scored that many goals most of the time. So we want to know that. And that's kind of the very basis of how we pick stacks using the Paydirt tools is the teams who have the better chance of scoring 8+ runs. And specifically teams that have a 20+% chance of scoring 8+ runs. That's mostly the sweet spot where we land. It's not to say that you can't choose teams that are lower, right? Like if we're looking at this, a mistake that people make is they're just like, oh, Boston is number 1 in the sheets, whereas Seattle is number 5 in the sheets. But like there's a 4% chance difference here, man. Like you can use any of these teams and feel totally fine. Kansas City is kind of the first team where you look at it and you're like, oh, that's a drop. And then obviously another massive drop to Milwaukee and Colorado. So
especially when you factor in the Kansas City ownership.
Yeah. And that's what LevX is doing here too, right? I mean, as soon as you see, oh, Kansas City has a drop there, oh, and 214% aggregate ownership and a negative 62% LevX, maybe we're not using Kansas City tonight in large fields. They're probably still okay in small fields. We'll talk about that in a second, but like I'm not touching Kansas City in large fields with those kind of metrics, you know. The top score percentage is also another reflection of the 8+ runs. Sorry.
No, you're good.
But the top score percentage is also going to be pretty fragile of runs scored. So you're going to see some deviations here, but this is just another way that you can look at it and say, you know, we have 10 teams on a slate. What kind of exposure cap do I want on my stacks? If you're somebody who plays GTO style and you want to kind of spread out your stacks, you can use top score percentage as a way of saying, here is an actual cap of how much I want of each team. Really nice little optimizer rule setting there. So, and then ownership is obviously self-explanatory, projected ownership for the team. That is excluding pitcher ownership, obviously. And then LevX is telling us in a very basic form, should we consider this team in large fields? You know, Chicago White Sox, highest LevX at 50%. We should probably consider them. Kansas City at drastically low LevX, like a large negative number. Probably not going to be in the player pool for large fields. But anybody who's, you know, 0 or slightly negative, you know, Minnesota probably fine, negative 12%, maybe a little bit more fragile to the way that you stack them or what pitchers you stack them with. But overall, that's kind of a very basic breakdown and a high level breakdown of this. So, Bobby, I will throw it to you. Do you have questions or thoughts here?
Yeah, I think it's super interesting because there's a lot of different ways to come up with different things. Some of it, you know, I played back in the day when there was hardly any projections out, you know what I mean, when this very, very beginning of DFS. And I did a lot of hand building and some of the stuff that, you know, some of the stuff that you sort of know inherently from playing for so long, or you think inherently, this does a couple things. One, it confirms a lot of my beliefs of where I see this being, and I'm mostly looking at it as it relates to ownership and like the top score versus, you know, as it compared to the ownership. You know, the LevX thing is really, really interesting, and I think it's really good for new users too to really understand that a lot of times we get questions, you know, even when we run our SaberSim things like, why am I getting Colorado and the White Sox on the road, like in a terrible spot? Because if you're actually trying to win a tournament, that's what it might take. You know what I mean? And I think it's a really cool tool. I don't have a whole lot of questions about this specifically. It makes a lot of sense to me. I do like the fifth inning percentage, lead percentage thing. I haven't really thought about it from that perspective before. I do a ranking of bullpens, but I always wait 2 months into the season because I think it's really hard to test bullpens on small sample sizes. But this is it's sort of a similar way to getting to a similar. It's a different way of coming to a similar conclusion. You know what I'm saying? And I think that's really interesting. So talk a little bit about and here, sorry, no, take it away on this and talk a little bit about this, and then I'll have some follow-ups, I think.
Yeah, so I was just gonna say, the MLB research sheets over at Paydirt are actually free to use. So you can, TrueDFS subscribers can go over there and use this as well. This dovetails very nicely into a lot of, the Paydirt tools, because this is the same data that's backing them. But I just want to point out really quick, we don't have time to go over everything that is in these research sheets right now because it's a big thing. But I do have bullpen data, and I have a really interesting stat that measures bullpen strength, and that is this HWS ratio. So this is telling us, it stands for hit walk strikeout ratio. So this is basically the ratio of strikeouts per hits and walks. It's a derivative of WHIP. So this is going to tell you a lot of really cool information on how likely it is that teams are going to be getting on base and how often relative to the downside of facing them. So this, when I built this out, I actually built it out for pitchers.
That's what
I was like, hey, this might actually be fucking great for bullpens. So you can see, and this is taking into account regressional statistics. So even early in the season, I usually turn bullpens on about a month in. This is a really nice way to kind of measure how strong bullpens are. And you can see, and this passes the sniff test for sure. Washington sucks. Colorado sucks. The Angels suck. A bullpen that you might not think sucks, but does suck, is going to be Seattle, right? Like, Seattle is a team that has they have a low walk rate, and their batting average, expected batting average, and slugging percentages are not super high, but they let a lot of guys on base relative to their strikeout rates. So these are bullpens that you want to attack. On the other hand, you see Arizona, they're just fucking lights out, man. Like, stacking against Arizona, typically just a terrible idea, because you're going to get in that bullpen and you're not going to score any more runs. San Francisco, Tampa Bay, Texas. Shout out Nicky Diesel yesterday, fucking calling me out on Texas bullpen being really, really good. This is a good tool to have an understanding of, do I really want to stack against this team or against this pitcher? Because even if there's a bad pitcher, you got to care about the bullpen. Half the game is going into the bullpen.
Right. No, that's super interesting. Just scrolling through it here real quick. Yeah, no, I love that. All right. Yeah. Sorry, let's keep going with whatever you feel. Yeah.
So let's jump back into the range of outcomes. So another thing that you can do here is you can look into different slates, right? So we have secondary slate, we have the turbo slate, and I load these up based on the three main slates, and I do it for both DraftKings and FanDuel, right? So the FanDuel main slate is actually the later slate. But you can see, whatever combination, and the top score stuff is going to be relative to the slate that you're looking. So you'll see that each one is inclusive or exclusive only of the teams that are on that slate. So, and then this button doesn't do anything. It's just a button. That's all. Just a button. I am pretty good at coding, but I do have things that I forget to plug back in. And when I rebuilt all these models, that was supposed to do an average of this, and I still could, but I haven't done that yet. So at a very high level, this is where you start. And like you said, for hand builders, right, this is really, really useful, because you just go in, and when you open it up on your phone, right, you're just on simple, and it tells you all the information that you need to know. Here's a team that's going to score the most runs. Here's a team that's going to score 8 or more runs the most often. Here's what their ownership is. There you go. And you can just kind of walk with that. If you wanted to just build your teams based on this, you very well could. You could say, oh, I should probably be using the pitchers against Colorado and Milwaukee, and I should probably be trying to stack Boston and Chicago, and just go with that. Very, very intuitive, very easy to use. So after you have done that, then what you need to do is say, okay, I kind of have an idea of where I want to go with my stacks. Who do I put into those stacks, and what pitchers do I use? Because even though you could very well, on this specific slate, say, yeah, I should probably use the pitchers against Milwaukee and Colorado. On a bigger slate, or on a slate that has not quite as large of a drop down to those two teams, you're going to kind of want to know who to use at pitcher. So then you go into the player range of outcomes, and this is the bread and butter model. So when you open it up, and I have it defaulting to simple. specifically because this is mobile friendly, right? I understand and recognize that most people are using this stuff on their phone more often than their desktop these days. So I wanted to start everything out like right when you open it. Here's just like the basic information that you need to know.
Right.
But when you go to advanced, then you can see a whole bunch of information here, right? So when you are looking at this, this can be a little bit daunting at first, but you can break it down into a couple different areas of projection. We'll put it that way. So you have your team, your player information here, and then you have your salary, you have your main range of outcomes here, floor, median, ceiling, and then you have your finishing percentile statistics, and then you have your salary-based statistics, right? So this is telling you what their range of outcomes is based on the game sim and the math that I have in there. This is going to tell you the finishing rates for the player based on the position that they play for baseball. So this is inclusive of or exclusive of pitchers and hitters specifically. For something like NBA, this is just inclusive of all players. I have thought about making it so that you can toggle this. Maybe this is a next year thing for NBA, where you could toggle it and be like finishing percentiles exclusive of everyone or exclusive of only the position the player plays. I've had some feedback asking for that. So maybe we'll see. But right now, you can see that the top finishing percentile, Cole Ragans was 64% chance to finish as the top overall scoring pitcher. Whereas Luke Keyshaw has a 17.9% chance to finish as the top overall scoring hitter, right?
Wow. That's way higher than I would have guessed.
Yeah, see? Quirks. There you go. So like the Tim Thomas situation yesterday, right?
Yeah.
And then you have top 5 finish, and then you have top 10 finish. So one of the things I like to think about with the finishing percentiles is for pitchers, like very obviously you kind of want to know who the top overall finisher is, but you want to really know who the top 5 finishers are, right? Because likely you don't need the top 2 overall finishers. You need 2 of the guys in the top 5.
Right.
Obviously, this is a 4-game slate. Like you're going to need raw points, so that doesn't super apply here. But on a 10-game slate, like if you can get 2 of the top 5 scoring pitchers, you're probably live. You're probably fine. And then top 10 finish obviously is across board. But in NBA, that's where top 10 finish matters, right? Because you're building out a lineup with a whole bunch of different guys, and there can be a multitude of different combinations that you can have. But you're probably going to want a handful of guys who finish in the top 10, right? So this is finishing percentile statistics. And then you have 20 plus percentage, which I think is really important for event-oriented sports. For NFL, especially, I don't ever want to use a player that doesn't have a chance to score 20 or more fantasy points. I just don't fucking care. In NBA,
it's the old JM to win. My old colleague there. We used to do a lot of shows together, but that was his rule. Like absolutely never doing it. Sorry.
Yep, never do it, man. Never do it. I'm not going to play somebody who projects for fucking 13 fantasy points, even if they're 3K. I don't care. They're probably not going to win me a GPP.
Right.
For NBA, I think that NBA, I have another rule where if somebody projects for less than 20 fantasy points, I won't use them. Doesn't matter if they're 3K.
Interesting.
Just because I feel very confident in the way that I build things out. And if somebody projects for less than 20 fantasy points, I think that they probably just suck. Right. But 20+% rate, that's how often in the simulations they finish with more than 20 fantasy points. So this isn't a median-based statistic. It's within a standard deviation of median to, ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
And then 2x, 3x, 4x. This is how often they 2x their salary, 3x their salary, or 4x their salary. And GPP percentage is a combination of all of these three things, right? So Cole Ragans, even though he's expensive at 9,800, has the best 3x of any pitcher, right? Like if you didn't play Cole Ragans today, you weren't trying to win any money, basically.
That's what I still pivoted in a couple different things, but I got you.
Well, but UMME, right? I mean, like you're
but like so for example, I played 2 in the big buy-ins, and in one of them I used Reagan's, and the other one I didn't, and I actually used a couple pieces from Colorado just to get extreme leverage. Because
wow. Yeah. Well, you're a fucking madman, Bobby.
Like just a couple pieces though, like just a little 2-man.
Sure.
It's just you know what I mean. Like, and it's just and partly it's also salary related and things like that. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's good lever. It's good talking points.
Yeah.
And then we have ownership percentage and small field ownership, large field ownership, and cash game ownership. So these all I use ownership percentage mostly because a lot of the things that I play are going to fit into that bucket. The other thing that I think that you can probably use is going to be the large field ownership, which is pretty well tuned. Small field and cash can get kind of weird on small slates because what the model wanted to say here is there was going to be 100% ownership on Cole Raggins and Garrett Crochet. But because it couldn't say that, it had to cut them in half first and then try again. And then it kept doing that on a 4-game slate. And then we ended up with 54% ownership, which isn't accurate. Right. So I have to work through some more of those models, but ownership percentage and large field ownership, feel really good about those. Those ones hit pretty well. Overall, once you break it down into kind of those different areas, it's easier to use. You know, you look at median and ceiling and like the actual range of outcome stuff as like the very basic level. You look at the finishing rate statistics as trying to say another level farther down, like, okay, they have a good median, but how often do they beat the other guys around them? The 2x, 3x, 4x stuff is for finding values, right? Like we can very easily see that if we wanted to find some value on the slate, Luke Kearshaw and Cole Raggins were like the best ways to find that, just kind of based on what we're looking at here. And all of this stuff is obviously sortable too, right? Like if you wanted to sort and see who the best values are overall, here you go. Dahlbeck, Hamilton, Palacios, Biggio, Raggins, Kearshaw. You know, you have all these guys. And then ownership, you're seeing, you know, one, who should I build around in small field? And two, you know, who's just going to be the highest owned on the slate? Who should I be wary of? Should I be considering getting off of any of these guys because of the ownership? Stuff like that. So there's a lot of information here. I plan on adding more information as well. I'm going to add like batting orders in pretty soon, because that's something that people have asked for. But overall, this is a really, really widespread tool, and it has a lot of uses. And there's going to be like a lot of different ways that people use this table. But this is the bread and butter for every single Paydirt model, right? There's a play range of outcomes for NBA, for MLB, for esports, for everything, right? And this is the way that I think people should play DFS. Is to look at things this way. You need to have an understanding of the range of outcomes. You need to have an understanding of who beats who, how often, because that's how you make decisions. That's how you make 1v1s. That's how you build out your lineups. Like, it's really important stuff.
Absolutely. No, I think this is really cool. And I really encourage anybody. And again, any questions on this with any of the specific tools and stuff like that, people have directed a few towards me, but I think that, I mean, James has been incredibly responsive in our Discord as well as his own. So we really appreciate that. But really, direct things. It's multicam on Discord, and then you can also, feel free to send them to me or post them in the general channels. I do want people to get used to using these things because I think they're really, really helpful. Can you talk a little bit about some of the betting stuff that we've been seeing? Some of the betting tools that I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Let me touch on optimals really quick, and then we'll move on.
I'm sorry, I took you off your rhythm.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I also wanted to point out that you do have info filters here. So this can be kind of easy to miss if you're not on a desktop, but click on that and it'll show you a whole bunch of things, right? Like we have showdown models as well built in, so you can see the different showdowns that are available. You can toggle between just hitters or just pitchers. You can also select just specific teams, right? Like if you wanted to see, okay, I know that I want to stack Boston today. Who should I be focusing on in Boston, right? You can go hitters for Boston and you can see, what the model's like the most out of those teams, right? So this, I do think that it is important to be able to do that kind of stuff. And if anybody has any like suggestions about different views they'd like to see, please let me know. Like Bobby said, tag me. There's a lot of people in the industry who have another job, right? Paydirt and building these tools and all of this shit, this is my job. So tag me. I'm around most of the time. And I want to be able to help people. So I did just want to show out really quick that the info and filters there do exist. And then my solution for an optimizer, because I say this all the time, I fucking hate building optimizers. I despise them. If I wanted to build an optimizer, I could, but I don't think I can compete with the likes of SaberSim. I don't think I can compete with the Solver. I don't think that I can compete with that shitbird Fantasy Cruncher Dave. Like, I don't think I can compete with these guys. So I don't, right? Like I build the things that go into the optimizers.
Right.
However, as I was building out the contest sims, I kind of had an epiphany of how you can use the things that I built for the contest sims as a pseudo optimizer. So without getting super deep into what the contest sims do, they utilize a back end of like a couple million lineups to then simulate things out, right? But while I was building out those lineups, it dawned on me, like, why wouldn't I just display the best lineups by projection that come out of that process and use them as an optimal sheet? So that's what this is. So this is actually optimals that you can use. Now, the one caveat here is that these are global maxima and not, or no, these are local maxima, not global maxima. Okay, so global maxima would mean that it is the top overall optimal that you can get based on projections, right? Like a pure linear optimal. These are not that. These are optimals built based on combination statistics and different kinds of math that I use for the seed frames that are very close to the global maximas, but are local maximas. So like this projection of 111.68, I do not know if that is the top overall projection that you can get with the Paydirt projections. But what I do know is that it's a very good projection based on the Paydirt projections, and it can be used in the contest sims, which means that I know that it's good enough for GPPs, if all that makes sense. So you can use this, and you can just build, you can take any lineups that you want from here. You can consider this as an optimizer. It's also going to give you some information about these different players. If you want to expand this out, you can. And you can see, you know, the team count, what the stack is. Here's the team that stacked Minnesota. The secondary is Seattle. And it is a one-man stack. I could go down and just like do this. And then you can also see what the ownership is, right? You can see some statistics about what the optimals are showing. So like you don't want to build a lineup on the slate that has anything less than about 47.8K in salary used. You want to aim for a projection of 99 and ownership of 222. That's what shows up in the optimals, right? Like I know there's a lot of people that think about what kind of lineups win GPPs. Jeremy King over at ETR, he does that for PGA. It's a really sharp way to build. This can help you build that way, right? And then it's going to tell you things about exposure in the seed frames. So this is just showing you the optimals that are showing right now. Cole Raggins is in 44% of the lineups above. He's in 67 of them. But say that you wanted to say, I don't just want to see 150. I want to see 1,000 lineups, right? Just hit 1,000 lineups, hit enter. And now we're seeing 1,000 lineups, right? He's in 36% of those 1,000 lineups. And all 1,000 of those lineups are here. Like you can go through them. And then you can look at the total seed frame frequency. So Cole Raggins, in the 10,000 lineups that I downloaded from the database here, he is in 9,848 and 42 of them.
Wow.
So you probably, of the top 10,000 lineups, Cole Raggins is basically in every fucking single one of them. He made sense as an optimal play.
Yeah.
Pretty big drop there from Cole Raggins to Landon Roop at 42%. But again, this is really valuable information to have, even for a hand builder. Right. Because like if you look at this and you say, who do I want to build around? Well, you should probably build around Cole Raggins, right? Yeah. And then also you could plug in Landon Roop, and then you have Kevon Biggio, Michael Garcia, Brooks Lee. You know, you have these guys who you could use as values. You go up and you could take a look at this and just say, hey, I just want to use, you know, show me a Minnesota stack with Cole Raggins, Landon Roop. There it is. Then just you know, go on your way. So this is my answer to an optimizer. I think that this is cleaner. I think that it's easier to use, especially because you don't have to press any buttons. You don't have to do any of that shit. The only other thing that I will say as well, if you wanted to just do things with this, you can export the display optimals here. And this is going to show you all the lineups that you have displayed. I exported this as IDs. So you can see that a couple of these are missing. I think it's because the game already started. Or no, maybe it's because I just didn't have the ID for that player. But you can download this, and assuming that I have the ID for the player, you can just upload this straight into DraftKings or FanDuel if you wanted to. You can also export the display names. So if you wanted to do more things on this, I know that Sheets is big on like exporting and then looking through the lineups, right? Like you do that. The other thing that I think is really powerful that nobody else in the industry offers, if you go here and you go to info and filters and you want to take all 10,000 of these lineups, you can do that. You can just hit prepare export the names. And this is 10,000 lineups for you to do whatever the fuck you want to do with them. Nowhere in the industry can you find 10,000 lineups just to have, right? Like this is really, really powerful if you have a process and if you have an understanding of the kinds of lineups that you want to build. This will allow you to do a whole bunch of things.
Mhm.
I use this to populate the portfolio manager, which I know that Sheets uses for MMA.
Mhm.
I use this for everything, for MLB, for NBA, everything like that over the portfolio manager. And you know, we can talk more about that maybe in a future video, maybe next week.
Mhm.
But if you want lineups, you can just come here and you can get a shit ton of lineups.
Mhm.
So I wanted to talk through that because I do think that this tab is really important, and I use it just as much as I use all the other tabs.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's really, no, I think it's really interesting. And again, it's some of it is it's not breaking my brain. It's just it's a different. There's so many different ways of looking at these things from an actual player's perspective that I have. That you know, for me, a lot of it just goes on feel like for NBA and stuff. I watch a lot of NBA, so I can sort of do, you know, I can put together a good lineup without literally looking at anything probably.
Yeah.
With baseball and and especially with the everyday sports where there's a million different options. You know, I find a lot of the SaberSim stuff really, really valuable for what I'm doing. It's just I have trouble when I try to put it's a never ending trying to find a way to put my slant on what what the simulations are giving me. But this is a really interesting thing that I want to spend more time on it myself. I haven't spent as much as I probably should. It's been a little bit hectic over here, but this is really, really cool. And I think it's really interesting and a seriously valuable offering.
Yeah, I would say for any users over at TrueDFS, and I say this to users for Paydirt as well, is like you should, if you can get yourself used to using these tools, you will never be able to go back to just a regular median set ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Like you'll never be able to just like go back to using projections the same way because you will have rewired yourself to think the way that these models want you to think.
Right.
It's part of the reason why people love Paydirt models so much after they get used to them, right? Like Paydirt as a company have a high retention rate of people who try the models and actually stick around for more than 1 month because then they leave and they're like, oh man, everything else is just like, it doesn't give the information that you need, right? So I think that it's a huge boon for TrueDFS subscribers. 100% think it is. And for anybody, again, please tag me if you have questions. Like I'm happy to talk through these things. Let's jump into the betting models. So if you've been in the Discord at TrueDFS, Adam has been posting NHL bets from the models. Yeah. And so those come from he does a stat specific sim over there. So if you're using them for that, what you would do is, oh, that's the wrong one. Just kidding. Joe betting tools. And you can do this for NBA as well. You can do it for NFL. But what you're doing here specifically is you're just saying, you know, simulate the prop category. And you just click the button over here. And I'll talk through a little bit more of kind of like the betting models for MLB because that's where we're in. But I wanted to explain what Adam is actually doing. And what he's doing is he's coming over here. He's clicking the simulate prop category, and he's just leaving these things open, right? So we're not selecting any specific prop category. We're not selecting a specific book. We're just, you know, seeing what the best bets are for the day. And then after he runs this, and you can see it's, you know, it's running game player shots for Bet365, all these different things. Then what we see is, okay, Robert Thomas over assists is the best bet on the day for now, right? Like all the books have a good edge on that. Jake Sanderson over on shots on goal. So it's literally that simple, right? Like you just go over, press a button, and it'll tell you what the best bets are to make. For MLB, it's a little bit different, but we'll walk through it. So for MLB, again, I do a bottoms up model. So none of this, I do not care about the top down part of this. So anything that you see here, any projection comes straight from bottoms up model. We have a game betting model here, which is going to tell you a lot of information and things that you can bet. It'll tell you the things that I use the most. I like betting spreads. So I'll find where the best spread value is. Today it was the Athletics versus Texas. 74% cover rate. They had a plus 1.5. Washington, 79% cover spread percentage. So they had a really good spread value too. And the White Sox, a 65% spread cover. So one of the things that people kind of, there's a misunderstanding in both baseball and hockey. People think that blowouts happen a lot more than they do. But the average outcome for an MLB game or for a hockey game is like 1 goal or 1 run scored.
Right. One or
So
two,
betting spreads is really effective, especially betting underdog spreads.
Hmm.
So this model will find those a lot. That's kind of one of the bread and butter things that I like to focus on. Another thing that I like to do is I like to look at game totals, and I like to find specifically the lowest game total. So today it was Colorado versus Kansas City. I think that the total at close was 8. So happy to take the under there. You can also find some obvious overs as well, right? Like I think that Arizona Tampa Bay, when I bet it earlier, was at, or no, it was Minnesota White Sox. It was at 7.5, and this model has it at 9.3 or 9.7. So some really nice spots to hit on that. I like betting spreads and game totals the most, but for people who are really into this stuff, you can see fifth inning lead percentages and bet that. You can see money line, right? I mean, win percentages here. There's money line value. The Athletics were underdogs today. The model does not think they should be underdogs, right? The money line was 45% win rate. We have it at 63%, so that's really nice value. If you just want to bet sides, this model is really good for that. I usually do a full unit on sides, rather than, when we get into props, I'll talk a little bit about, you should probably care about your bet sizing, but for sides, I usually just go one full unit. If I were to put a hierarchy just for true DFS subscribers, start with spreads, and then move into totals, and then move into money line. As everybody knows, betting underdogs can be a little bit shaky. There's upside in it, and it does lend itself well to this model. But for the most part, I think that spreads are much more consistent. When I have measured and done back testing on spreads, that has been the one that has been the highest ROI. So that's where I would start. But if you're just like, wanting to find some games to bet on, there you go. You have that accessible now. As with all of these models, you can export these, whether you want to use this download button or you can hit the export team model, either one. Jumping into the prop projections specifically for players, you can see a whole bunch of different information here. Again, this all comes from the game sim. So what I will usually be doing when I'm looking at these is trying to find differences in the betting models versus walks, hits, and strikeouts. Hits can be, it's kind of hard to bet because the amount of hits that any pitcher is going to give up is usually between 4 and 6, and it's just kind of there. But you can find some edges there. I do like betting walks, and we'll talk about that with hitters as well. But walks has been something that I've focused on for the last year straight. After we had the pitch clock change and the step-off change, with those changes, walk rates skyrocketed. Both hitters and pitchers, and stolen base rates also skyrocketed, but books hammered that down quick. Last year, though, with walks, you had edge on walks until the end of the year. You can still hit those. This year, they have juiced up pitcher walk lines, right? Like a lot of them, you'll see 2.5s, and you'll see 1.5 is juiced up to -180, -170. But there's still edge in betting overs on walks on pitchers, I think. Under is a little bit harder to find, right? Like the lowest is 1.68, but that's just, it is what it is. You're betting a lot of overs right now. And then strikeouts. So some people have asked me, do I ever have strikeout props that say that we should bet over on the high numbers? And the answer is mostly no. So if you ever see a pitcher outside of basically Spencer Strider with a strikeout prop of 8 or more, typically good models are going to tell you to bet the under. Because 8 or more strikeouts is pretty fucking rare, even for the elite guys.
And even if a pitcher is let's just say even if he gives up only a run or two or even less, you still there's pitch count issues these days. It's really, really hard except a very, very small few for that ever to be a profitable bet on the over.
Yeah. 7.9. That's a fucking high projection for my model. That's high. Again, you should have played Cole Reagan today. But usually I'm not going to suggest, and this model is not going to suggest overs on props that are really, really high on strikeouts. We're much more likely to take unders on those. The best way to use this kind of stuff, by the way, is using stat specific sim. We'll get to that here in a second. But just from a glance, you'll be able to find, if you're looking to just bet things on your phone or whatever, you'll be able to find some pretty nice values here. So for hitter props as well, we have a whole bunch of different things here, right? We have not only the base rate stats, but we also have fantasy. We also have total bases, hits, runs, RBIs. There are not very many stats that I don't offer in the Paydirt tools. If I don't offer them, it's for a reason. I don't offer pitch count stats because I think that they're insane to bet. I'd like one bad inning can completely destroy any kind of projection. It's just super hard to project. So I don't include that. People have asked me about that. But the things that I like to bet the most here are going to be walks, like I had talked about. So like Luke Keyshaw had an 84% chance to have a walk today. Probably should have bet a walk for him. Home runs, I like to bet home runs. Typically, my model's a little bit conservative on home runs. I was talking to Grant Neefer about that recently. And I think that my model is maybe a little bit conservative. I've done a little bit of testing, and I did increase them a little bit, but not too much. I think once we get into the summer, I don't want to make changes now and then in June have somebody with like a 65% chance to hit a home run. You know, like 'cause that's outside Aaron Judge. Like I'm not gonna fucking want to put that out there. But betting home runs is good.
Grant is amazing at this stuff. It's crazy.
Oh, he's so good. Yeah. He's so good. Which is why I asked him about it, because
he really found his niche from like, I mean, we met a million years ago, and that's crazy that he found a very unique niche, and he's really every day. It's like, okay, 2 out of these 3 guys are hitting home runs. It's like, I mean, do you know how incredibly crazy that is? Like,
it's like a 40% ROI or something betting home runs. It's fucked up.
Yeah, that's incredible. Anyway, sorry.
No, it's okay. I like to bet steals as well. Nasim Nunez and Luke Keyshaw, 56%, 53%. I have bet Nasim Nunez. Number. Yeah, it's a really, really good number.
Yeah.
I've bet Nasim Nunez over on steals, I think 4 days in a row and gotten blanked on it. So, hopefully he fucking gets there. You go and look at his minor league stats, and you're like, this guy steals every single time he gets on base. The problem is he's batting like 0.09 right now.
Right. It's tough. Yeah.
But as soon as he gets on base, I will hit a fucking stolen base prop on him, because I will bet.
The only other issue you run into is if there's a runner on before him, it's hard, because then you need the double. It's like impossible. It's rough.
It's brutal. But hopefully he hits one a day, because I would like to make my money back on him. The thing that I wanted to also say here. So walks, I will do a full unit. I feel very confident in those. Total bases, I will also do a full unit. And mostly because similar to the way that I look at things like PRA for NBA, the more broad a stat is, the easier it is to project. And so the more confidence that I have in putting money on it, right? So total bases, feel good about that. Happy to do 1 unit on that. The things that I'm going to have less than the unit on. Home runs, 0.1 unit. They're just super volatile, right? And especially because of the way that this model does things. Here's our friend, Mr. Tim Tawa. You probably don't want to put a full unit on home runs. 1, in general, unless you're fucking Grant, or 2, just because the volatility is just really, really high over a season. Runs, I like to bet runs scored as well. There's a lot of ways for guys to score runs. I do a quarter unit on runs, and then I do a quarter unit on steals. I do think that steals is something that is relatively well projectable now.
Yep, I agree.
We have good data on it. So that's kind of the way that I break things down. I don't usually bet hit singles or doubles. I think that RBIs is very similar to assists in NBA. I'm not a super big fan of betting it, but I understand the appeal, and I think that it is worth doing if you are into that kind of stuff. And then hits, runs, RBI. So I like hits, runs, RBIs. I think that it is a good thing to bet, but the books have fucking killed the market.
Yep. I was going to say the same thing.
So
it's really tough.
It's like, if you can find values there's going to be values if books offer stuff, but books have killed the market there.
Yep.
So this is the basic stuff, right? We have game model, pitcher prop projections, hero prop projections. It's going to cover 99% of the things that you need to bet. The other things that we have, this is a really cool thing that you can do. This is a player prop sim. So say that we wanted to see that Ragan stat, right? So we have Ragans, we have strikeouts over, and say 7.5, because I know that's what was offered today. Oops. If we have this, and let's just call it negative 105, because I'm pretty sure that was even money. If we simulate this prop out, what you can actually see is the distribution of how often that happens. So, the mean outcome was 7.96. The prop offered was 7.5. The implied odds was 50%, beats the prop 58% of the time. This model suggests no bet because it has a 10% leeway on either side. I only really want to bet things that are 10% edge or better. But the cool thing here is being able to see the actual outcomes, right? So if we were to say that this is the green line of where the prop is, right? So you can see that within his distribution, there's a meteor part of the distribution where he hits this. However, if this was 9.5, we can simulate that out, and now you can see that the vast majority of distribution is actually under that. So this is cool as a visualization. I am actually going to add this in as a player comparison in the range of outcomes. So that's something that I'm going to work on over the next couple of weeks, where you can compare two players and see what their distributions are next to each other. That was a suggestion from Pablo in the Discord, Paydirt OG and contributor. He's great. But this is a really cool visualization, and this isn't the kind of thing for everybody, but it is cool to see. So wanted to point this out. And then the last thing that you're going to use, we're going to ignore the bet sheet right now, because this needs to be updated. But the stat specific sim, so this is very similar to what we just did with NHL at the beginning of this, but this is running for individual stats only right now. So we can simulate this prop category out for strikeouts, and we can see what the edge is, what we want to bet, right? Like Rasmussen had a prop of 4.5. The mean outcome is 6.17. So there's 17% edge on this based on the over and implied over rates. This is kind of like the very, you would call an easy button, right? Like we're just happy to use this, simulate the prop category, find our overs, happy to bet them. I don't know why this has all overs right now. Oh, well, actually I do. It's because it's a short slate. So you're going to be able to find, like I said, a lot of baseball betting right now is overs, because the markets just haven't accounted enough for walks by pitchers and for the offensive environment.
I agree.
So we have a lot of overs right now, which feels weird because as professional bettors, we always tell people that like unders are more valuable. But in baseball, straight up, man, overs have been more valuable to start the year. We'll see how that looks in June. I think we'll start a lot more unders in June as books maybe overcorrect.
Yep.
See? But this is all of the betting models that you get with Paydirt stuff. So do you have any questions or concerns?
Just a couple. No, this is really great stuff. I'm curious about like take the A's for example. To me, that was one thing that I felt like the things, because everything I had heard and from every analyst you could find before the season started is, oh, it's going to play a slightly better than average hitters park. So far, it's played like an unbelievable hitters park, basically like a mini Coors. Is there a way that you can have of tracking, like there's a lot of new information and every year is different and people work on things in the off season and sometimes it takes a while to catch up on a pitcher changed his arm angle and all of a sudden he was one of the worst pitchers in baseball. Now he's one of the best. Like things like that happen. How do you do early in the year? Like how are you projecting earlier in the year? Are you just taking historical data? Is that the only way you can do it? Or how do you factor those kind of things in?
So speaking of the ballpark stuff really quick, this is another free model that you can use over at Paydirt, assuming it loads. I'm not sure why it's taking so long to load right now. But this is another free model that you can use as a TrueDFS subscriber over at Paydirt. It's going to have all the different ballpark factors for overall left-hand hitters and right-hand hitters. And I built this to kind of compete with, what is it, fucking Ballpark Pal or?
Yeah, I can't remember the name of it either.
But I think this is a better way to look at it. I think that everything that I build, if I'm going to build it, I'm going to build it better than other people. So this is, you can see a whole bunch of different things here, right? So this is all stats overall for all the different parks. And this is over the last full year. So this is a rolling 1 year sample for ballpark stats. I usually run this every single morning. Once we get into, especially right now, because we have to care about the Athletics and Tampa Bay, right?
Oh, yes.
Once we get into the summer, this is probably going to be like a once a week thing update because we just don't need to update the data every day. But there's a lot of different things you can see here. So you can see raw stats, right? This is the raw stats that we have for each different park overall. See the averages, right? The amount of hits per plate appearance, singles per plate appearance, home runs per plate appearance, all this kind of stuff, walk rates. And then you can see the boosts. And this is the important one. So you can see overall for the Athletics, right-hand hitters, there's boosts kind of across the board, right? The xwOBA average boost is 114%. It is the best park in the league right now for right-handed hitters. The worst park in the league right now for right-handed hitters is Seattle, which makes sense. It's kind of been that way. But say that you wanted to see just for left-handed hitters, right? Like you're trying to decide based on, you stacked up a whole bunch of lefties and you want to see what the park factors are. Colorado is the top overall, 108%. San Diego Padres is the least overall, 91%. You can also see home run boosts, right? So the Phillies left-handed hitters, in Philly get the largest home run boost. It's not Coors. It's not the Athletics. It's left-handed hitters in Philadelphia. If you look at right-handed hitters,
but is there a chance that these stats are a little bit skewed because Philly has like 3 of the best left-handed power hitters in baseball?
No, because this includes opponent stats and those guys who are in opposing parks, right? So it's normalizing based on all of that stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, the Yankees, the best overall for right-handed hitters. Now, to your point, again, they have Aaron Judge, but this is taken into account when Aaron Judge plays in the Angel Stadium and when he plays in Minnesota, all that kind of stuff, right? So really, really nice boost there. The Dodgers also, you can see that actually for Colorado does not show up as a home run park, right? The reason why we like Colorado is because there's a lot of hits in general. Yeah. So that's where you get those boosts. The ex-Wobo boost is still really, really good for Colorado, but not the home run boost. So, food for thought.
Yeah.
If you're betting home runs,
the gaps are a lot larger too. So you have more doubles, triples type of things. And then
that was Kauffman Stadium as well, right? Yep. Kauffman Stadium actually has a larger field. So this is really, really important and cool to see. This is free to use over at Paydirt as well. So TrueDFS subscribers, you can go use this stuff. Now, to answer your question about how I handle this stuff. So I specialize in regressional statistics. Everything that I have built in the industry has basically been like, how can I take advantage of something that people don't understand very well? And baseball is something that I can do that very well with, right? Because we have such strong statistics in something like PGA, there's nothing to really leverage, right? Like you can leverage. I've done all the research. I've talked with like Jeremy. I've talked with like Nelson Addock. I have talked with Drewby when Drewby was doing things. Like there's just not anything to leverage except for putting statistics, basically, and to try to parse putting statistics to build a regressional model is literal hell on earth. So I can't do it. Right. But with baseball, I have a whole bunch of information. With football, a whole bunch of info. NBA, I have a whole bunch of info, right? So with MLB, specifically the things that I do early on in the season, we're using a full year sample, right? We're just using over the last year, here is what we have. Rookies are just used as baseline average, all right? So I never assume that a rookie is going to be good. I also never assume that a rookie is going to be bad. Like when Kurtz gets called up, Kurtz is just a dude that gets baseline understanding model statistics, right? Like he's just the guy. And then after we get some more information on him, then the model starts to go to work. So we have a certain amount of time that we care about. The first 20 plate appearances, we're going to regress against kind of the baseline average for a rookie. And then after those 20 plate appearances, then we're going to use a rolling average of their last full year stats and regress against certain statistics like slug percentage, home run rate, stolen base rate, stuff like that. But what it ultimately all comes down to and where the strength of the models really comes in is not in hitters, right? Because hitters are mostly at the will of pitchers outside of things like walk rates where it's a little bit of a split. But for the most part, a hitter is only really in control of how hard they hit the ball and whether they try to swing at the ball at all. Outside of that, it's pretty much all pitchers. So most of my work goes into figuring out how many hits a pitcher is going to allow, how strong they are at striking people out, how bad they are at walking people. And we can do a lot of different regressional statistics on the contact that is made, the kind of balls that are hit into play, the kind of BABIP statistics, how often pitchers are striking people out relative to how often they're getting on base. That's another big one, that hit walk strikeout ratio. And so because of all of that kind of stuff, like early on in the season, we can normalize pitchers so quickly because they throw so many pitches. If you're doing the statistics based on the pitches that they're throwing and the contact that they're making, you can actually normalize things pretty well because you're not doing it off the results. So the results are the volatile part, not really the base stats. When you can read the base stats, when you have a model that understands the base stats well, you can work with small samples pretty well. Now, all that said, pitchers usually use a full year of statistics up until about 30 days in, 10 games or so. And then we switch to including the last 45 days. And then we have a mix of those two things, and we use that all the way through the year. Hitters, I wait until 90 days, or hitters, I wait until 45 days. And then I start doing the same thing. So then I have a 45-day rolling sample on both. And I'm using both the short sample and the full year sample to inform each other of what we should expect should happen. We need the full year and the 45-day sample so that we can aggregate together, so that we can develop league average rates to regress against, because that's ultimately what we regress against. Some guys are exceptions, right? Some guys you're regressing for, Aaron Judge is not going to be a league average hitter. So most of his stuff, if the model feels strong about a hitter like him or Mike Trout or something like that, it's mostly just going to use their stats as a baseline. But guys who have less plate appearances, it's going to be trying to regress against the league average more often. It's going to be regressing against, we don't know that Tyler Soderstrom is like an incredible hitter. He's had a great start, but we don't know. Pete Crow Armstrong is another guy, right? Like
him, I'm pretty sure he is going to be great.
Yeah. People are
yelling for 3 years, so I've got to stick with it.
Yeah, people are making fun of me in the Discord right now because I took some bets against him to start the season. But it is what it is. I think he's going to regress. I think he'll regress.
Yeah, no. I mean, he'd probably regress from right now. But yeah, I've been high on this guy for years, and I'm happy to see him finally getting a little bit of his due.
That's how most people feel. So
yeah, people get hyped about. What happens like with these young guys who are hyped. It was like when Cardi got this whole thing going where he was anti-Tatis forever.
Yeah,
we were like, no, Tatis is going to be awesome. Don't worry about it. And at some point, I don't think Pete Armstrong is the same, but I think that it's he's going to be a very good player for his career. Is all I'm saying. I'm not betting you.
At the very least, he'll be fun. He's exciting.
Yeah,
that's cool. But my models are going to be a little bit lower on him for now.
Yeah,
until we hit that threshold when I can use a significant amount of in-season data, which usually happens in about June.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a long way of saying that the reason why I'm able to do this is because I've built models that understand how to find noise and how to find signal, and not necessarily find solid concrete stuff. But frankly, I don't think that you have to care about solid concrete stuff. For betting models, I think that it's important. It's always James versus Cardi in the middle of the season, right? Because my models are constantly at war with Cardi's models. Now, the BAT-X is really good for betting props. I will say that. I think it's bad for betting in DFS, right? Like, I think that his models are too slow to adjust. I think they use too long of samples, and so you miss on things.
Well, first of all, even to speak more to that point, using things like park factors and all that, these baseball parks change every single year, and the climate changes every single year, whether you like it or not. This is not a hot take. When you have years, there's been years in the past where Wrigley has been the #1 hitters park for the season, and it's been the #1 pitchers park for the season because of the winds and because of the way the weather is. So I actually like the idea of being a little bit more recency biased than some of these giant. I want some sample size, but I don't want everything from 15 years ago. Houston is a totally different ballpark than it was 10 years ago. It doesn't make any sense to use information from back then. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Kaufman, by the way, too. Anyway.
Yeah. I think that if you are not, because here's the thing, and this is kind of like an overall DFS thing, right? Our job is not necessarily to be accurate. It's not. Our job is to win money and to win other people money, right? When it comes to me building out a model, I don't give a shit if the model is the most accurate R2 Pearson correlation model. I really don't care. And so I don't tout it like other people who tout like, oh yeah, our projections were X, Y, Z. Who the fuck cares? Like how many subscribers won money? And the way that you win subscribers money is by catching things that the industry is not necessarily catching.
Correct.
And I think that using short samples is a really good way to do that. Do I know if Tim Tawa is going to be incredible for his entire career? Probably not. Do I know that right now he hits the shit out of the ball? And like, I literally had to put in a backstop in the model specifically for Tim Tawa because he had an 80% rate of home run per plate appearance. Like, he probably won't do that for his entire career. But like, what if he does it for a little while? Right. It's kind of, it was the same thing with Tyler Fitzgerald last year for the Giants. The model had him as like the top overall projection for like a week and a half. And lo and behold, he hit a home run every other game for like a month. And like the rest of the industry was like, oh, well, we don't know if he's going to be like this. I'm like, I don't fucking care. I don't care.
Right.
So why do I care? My job, I think that if I can find, sure, there's going to be a lot of times when like the model picks up on something that is kind of noisy and it doesn't come out to pay, right? But for every 2 or 3 instances of that, if I can find one Tim Tala or one Tyler Fitzgerald that the model finds before the rest of the industry, with all of the saturation in the industry, if you can find those guys before the rest of the industry for like 2 weeks, 3 weeks,
Yep.
that's all you need, man. Like that's all that you need. So the way that I look at modeling and the way that I look at statistics overall, it's not about being accurate. It's about winning money. So what's the best way to win money? Find something that people aren't on yet and take advantage of it.
Yep, absolutely. Well, dude, this has been really good, and it's enlightening for me because I get to. I mean, I've played around with these things on my own, but I like hearing you explain it all. Really, it makes it a lot easier for me. I really hope everybody does get a chance to take a look at it. And again, fire in the questions and thoughts. I have another call in about 10 minutes, so I'm probably going to get out of here pretty shortly. But James, really, really impressed with what you built, and really happy to be working with you, man. I've been a long time coming, but happy to be doing this, and hopefully we can make it more of a regular thing with you, I and Sheets, or you and Sheets, or me and you, or occasionally maybe with Adam or something like that. I think it's great, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I think we should do more of this next week, or the next one that we do. We'll talk about the pivot finder and the contest sims, because we didn't get into those today.
Absolutely.
But we'll just kind of do this for a couple weeks and get everybody acquainted, and then I think Adam wants to do some content. I'm going to talk to some of my content creators, and maybe we can do a little bit more collaboration that way.
That would be awesome. All right, man. Thanks so much, James. Appreciate everything, buddy.